So I spent a month at Lulworth Cove at Rudd's Hotel. We're helping out at the just helping out, doing some gardening work, etc. It was a really nice time there. Met some beautiful people, including the owners. So I think we will all stay in touch. So I've just done about 12 miles today just to come out of there down to I forgot the name, Ringstead, I believe it is. So this is some National Trust land. So I'm going to head down towards Weymouth, Portland, so I am finally back on the road, so I shall start to try and get some more logs of what I get up to. The hills down here were a nightmare. My disc brake completely worn down, so by the time I got to the last hill I could barely stop the bike. So that's something I'm going to need to be wary of on the Dorset hills, because there's so many of them, it wears down the brake in no time. So this is where I would have really enjoyed having a rim brake on there, so maybe I'll try and get hold of a new set of forks, possibly one that has a rim and a disc brake. But after Weymouth I might start heading back. I shall head back to Northampton, because it's getting to that point of the year where I feel like it's time to start harvesting berries and making jams. But look at this place, it's a nice little cove. Very, very, very hard journey to get here due to the nature of the gradients, but a very worth it place to come and visit. So Portland is over there, which is where I'm aiming to go this weekend to see John Renston. He's going to be there doing some foraging sessions. But what a beautiful place to stop for the night. So after a month spent at Lulworth Cove, this is Weymouth. So I've already ridden up the pier, rode up the pier to get to nip to Halford, get a few parts, a chain, some tyres, brake pads, just general serviceable things that needed doing after the long drive down. So I'll probably head further up this pier for tonight. There's a place I can pull up, and a friendly chap who has a house next to the beach said I could have a shower there and just have a chat, have a shower, show the kids the bike. Yeah, it's really friendly, so that's probably tonight's stop sorted. So just had to stop here because there's a bunch of rose hips. Some of them are ripe, but they're so rich in vitamin C, so very nutritious. And it's almost the time of year to start harvesting them. There's a few soft ones, but the rest are not quite there. So again, we've had quite a few people stop and speak to me about the bike. Some walking away very inspired. So it almost feels like I haven't left the road at all, that month in Lulworth was almost a dream. But we met some beautiful people there and made some good friends. Hello. Where we ended up over the past couple of days, met a chap called Richard, and like his family and friends. And there's Adam, Jazz, and everyone else. So it's just been so welcoming and such a lovely place to spend our time. So we ended up with some fish that. So a chap came up to me yesterday and just handed me £20 for what we're doing. And then he gave us some fish today when he went fishing out somewhere out there. So three breams. So big thank you to him. Yeah. So we'll probably move on in the next day or two. Head over towards Portland, which is in that direction. And then maybe head back towards Bridport, maybe stay around the coast a little longer, and then start heading back to Northampton. So a lovely meal. I'm also made some blackberry kind of yogurty drink with the blackberries that were harvested earlier. So yeah, just a wonderful synchronicity. So Richard actually wrote an album which very closely resembled the book that I wrote a while ago, My Theories, Philosophies and Inspirational Words. So it's quite fascinating how you end up meeting people like that. So that's got to be the highlight of all of this.
You can tell me your head.
Oh guys, where? Oh, what the? If I see an animal, I'm literally gonna jump. Oh my god!
Go find some.
Oh, there's a castle. If I see a person, I'm gonna jump.
Oh, it's going in. Oh no, it's not.
Yeah, that's the goal.
I thought that was
I can get it if I'm like.
There you go.
Yeah, it kind of not as impressive if you're like 3 feet away from it.
Don't know, if you can slip it past the goalie, it will always be impressive.
No, it's getting too much height.
to stay at YHA Portland. I just want to see how set up the tricycle over here. So this is what I've been trying to set up for a while. So travelling mobile, and I've finally got my virtual reality in here. So as we walk into the youth hostel, so we're doing this evening, and anyone staying here is welcome to have a go on this. So we have virtual reality.
Butter hands, butter hands. I'm trying to show you the post-it note here, but can you see it?
So there we go.
Yeah, we can see it.
Alright.
We're playing virtual reality in a youth hostel. So we'll do this wherever we go, anywhere that's willing to set it up. We'll promote virtual reality. So we've had a few people very interested in buying one. So it's a mix between virtual reality and self-sufficiency, which I think, in a way, I feel like virtual reality is a good thing for the future if used in the right way, because any resources that are taking up the land that are not doing any good to it, you could put that, when virtual reality is real enough to experience as though you're actually there, you've got the space without having to take up like vast acres of land and polluting things such as car racing, etc. So that's just a possibility for the future. It's also very educational without having to step outside your room if you're playing one of those specific things. But because I compete over winter with Echo Arena, I thought I'd get a unit so that I can carry it on this tricycle over here and still stay trained up for when I'm back in autumn. And so we'll be competing again during winter. So it's something that no one really expected when we walked in. So we've got some people queued up, enjoying it, and it also brings the community together a little bit. People that were curious have just walked into the room, had a look, took a photo, had a chat. So yeah, that's where we are right now.
My acres of a land that I've achieved. It might be hard for you to stop and believe, but for you, I give it all. Take your life. There's a family on the right. I said, don't go out tonight. Take your life. There's a family on the right. I hear the phone, names are blown.
live music.
There's no share there.
No, where's it going?
Lego. Whose Lego is this?
It's
Is
Finn's.
it? Mate. Lucky thing. Do you think you'll get upset if I fuck with his Lego?
No, he's pretty chilled actually.
Right, so we've made it halfway home after maybe 2 or 3 days riding. We start off at very early start, 6 in the morning because of this summer heat, but it gives us the perfect opportunity to charge up. As you can see on here, I'm actually getting 2.7 amps charge, and it's not even midday yet, so I reckon I could go over 3 amps. And that's why I have this out. I'm letting it dry out a bit because of the morning dew, but also it's given the perfect angle to get the most out of the sun. So I reckon I could be pushing 4 amps if that thing could move upwards and tilt too. But it's been a good journey. We've been making quite a lot of ground in the morning, and there's been relatively no issues now because we've had all the problems on the way down. We were able to mitigate them on the way up, so I know to check my chains, I know to check the brakes, know to look at all the different parts of it like the rims, etc. Just so it's not too difficult this time around. Doing a lot, we can just keep pedaling without an issue. So we have arrived at Winchester. We have done about 40 miles today, another one and a little bit to get to the farm where we were going to pitch up for the night and pick up some more raw milk for tomorrow to get us up to Northampton. So it's been a pretty uneventful journey. There's not been too many issues. The main problem today, for some reason, we had 3 flat tyres, mostly on Annabella's bike. The 2 trailer tyres went flat at the same time. I think she went over a bump or something the wrong way and pinch flatted them. And same with her rear tyre, that went flat too. So that's the only real problems that we've had. This is the 3rd day riding, and so yeah, we pushed it just a little further today and managed to get 40 miles. We were originally going to stay in Winchester at a campsite, but we managed to make it that little bit further, so we could shorten the journey back home by about a day perhaps, if we can achieve another 40 miles tomorrow. So yeah, journey back home will probably total about 500 miles there down to the coast, and the mileage along the coast and back. So it's been quite the test, and I think it's been a successful test, a very successful one. I've kind of proved that this contraption actually works, and we have achieved a lot with it. So yes, completely self-sufficient travel and completely off-grid. So for those that thought that a solar powered vehicle wasn't possible, pedal power, solar power, and actually have your home on wheels, well, it's done. I've been towing 200 kilos around for 500 odd miles, and it works. So there we go. We're over halfway now, so not much further to go to get home. We're now pulled up out at Peak House Farm. So this is just near Whitchurch, a beautiful little area. He has some very, very, very nice raw milk in here. So if you're ever passing this way, just £1 coins in the vendor. And I tried it when I was coming down here because this is the area where we broke down. Just down the road is Watership Down, and that's where Annabella's rims had broken, had split on the way down to the south coast. So yeah, we're good to park just over here for tonight. Now this since I've had this new gearing on the bicycle, the chain has lasted much longer. So that tiny little 32 sprocket, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, just about, there you go, 192, nearly 193 miles, and the chain has only stretched to 0.5. Usually by 120 with the old gearing, I had already had to change the chain at 120 miles. So I reckon I could push nearly 250 this time before I have to change that, which is really good. So that's doing great this time. So yeah, and I've also, on the way back up, I've set myself a little challenge. I'll see if I can keep it up. I haven't actually plugged my bicycle into a power socket for the journey up here. Now this is just a test to see, with the intense riding every single day, doing 40 miles a day, if we can make it up to Northampton without needing electricity at all, so it's completely off grid. So far so good. I'm actually holding out at, let's have a look, can you see that? So yes, I am holding out at 97% charge today. There we are. Oh. So yeah, 97%, and that's from doing another 40 miles today. I charged it up fully yesterday in the sun. So what we've been doing to achieve this is changing the way that we ride. So we will get up at 6 AM or 5:30, pack down and be gone by 6:30ish, 7 at the latest. So we'll do about 30 miles riding before it gets really hot during midday, because that's when it becomes very hard to ride. So 30 miles out the way, and then the final stretch we'll just slowly make our way another 14-15 miles, and and I'm thinking now on the way back I'm going to see if we can wild camp instead of having to find somewhere to pitch up. So we've just done over half the journey, which is great. We haven't got an awful lot, not much further to go. I think we can get back in 2 days if we do this right, because if we can do 40 miles tomorrow, we'll almost be at the raw milk Jersey, the Jersey place we usually pick it up with the van near Toaster. So that will solve that. We can pick up the raw milk on the way back and be back at home. What's the day today? Sunday. So maybe by Tuesday we should be back in Northampton. So the journey on a whole has been a huge success. I'm very pleased with this. I've kind of proved that you can be fully off grid with a means of travel that's actually practical, and yeah, completely practical. It's riding down with the trike down these country lanes, you see so much more on the way down. It's about the journey. So when people are going to destinations, they just get in the car and they go down the main road. They don't think too much about the road, etc. Whereas on here, the journey itself is not a bore, because we're actually going down new places. We're going down quiet places that have some narrow roads, some lots of countryside. It's like almost like an adventure, and that's what it has been, an adventure this whole summer. So I'm looking forward to going back home, namely to get the seaweed grinded up and start making jams for winter. So we've pulled up at the St. Peter's campsite, so we're very nearly home. We are just below Oxfordshire at the moment. Did another 37ish miles today. Just busy charging up the batteries in the sun. So on reporting in regards to being able to charge and keep a charge while riding without plugging into electric, my bike has been very good at maintaining this. It was quite a tough terrain this journey. I don't know if you can see that, but I have about 95% charge back. My battery had been run down right down to 79% with these heavy hills. I was using the motor a lot just to get up, and yeah, so it was a tough journey. We had to climb up to 630 feet and then had a very steep drop down, which frightened me a little bit because my brakes started to wear out and were virtually gone by the time I got to the bottom of the hill. So that's something that really needs some seeing to, especially if I'm going to tackle places like up towards Yorkshire and many hills. If the brake goes out on me, I'm a bit stuck. So the front wheel needs something doing with it. So what I'm thinking of doing is getting a front set of forks that has both a V-brake and a disc brake, and that should give me enough stopping power. I'd then have 4 usable brakes, because the disc brake just wears down, and then on a very steep, like 16% climb down half a mile, I virtually have nothing left by the end of it, because if I didn't keep my hand on the brake, I'd be going about 40 to 50 mile an hour, which is kind of ridiculous. So other than that, the journey's a success. We should be near to Evenley tomorrow, which is where we get our raw Jersey milk local to home, and then there's only a 20-mile ride back to Northampton, so probably we could make 38 miles tomorrow. We'll see what happens, and if we can achieve that, we'd be right on time for getting home by Wednesday. So yeah, time to relax, recharge. My legs have pretty much gone today. I've exerted so much energy for myself to kind of get up some of these hills. So now we came here earlier in the day just so that we had time to charge and time to relax. So Annabella's bike is the one that's tricky to maintain a full charge on. Only with the 200 watts. You are she's still down at 51 point something volts, which is maybe about 75 to 80% maybe. So this is a trickier one to kind of do if you don't have a whole 400 watts of power at disposal. So this version is a success. I can pretty much in this weather I can maintain perfect charge. So what we'd have to do here in the future perhaps is to have a couple of folding out panels to produce us 400 watts, just so that you can maintain that charge during the day. But this is ideal, having the 2 on the roof as well as the 2 on the trailer, because I'm getting 400 watts of potential power. It's never at truly 400 watts, but I get quite a lot of power just by having that going all day long, whereas this is very limited. So overall, this is good for more of a shorter trip, more leg power, lighter trip, light touring perhaps, where you are able to get into the main socket if you're doing a long stretch, whereas this one is more so a permanent on-the-road vehicle. After I'm able to sort the brake issue out, maybe see how the chain is doing. I've still got to measure that today, but I would think I'd be in the region of between 0.5 and 0.75, possibly 0.75 after the hills today, but we shall see. I reckon I could get home. Without having to change it. And let's have a little look at the odometer. So far, we are on. You can just about see that. We are on 231, nearly 232 miles, so that's at least doubled the life of the chain having that small sprocket. But yeah, so that's all for now, and the last stretch is tomorrow. So we finally made it home. So this is the end of the journey. It started where it ended where it all began. We've done about 58 miles today from where we were staying at St Peter's Farm all the way back to Northampton. We realised we could just kind of do the long straight because the road's levelled out a little bit, not as many hills. So yeah, I made it all the way back to Northampton on nothing but the sun. So as you see there, I did use the motor quite heavy on the way back because when I got closer, because as you can imagine, after 58 miles, so I would have probably had about 65% left if I wasn't using it all the time. So that's since I last changed the chain, 289 miles. So I'll do some calculations, but I reckon we are in excess of 500 miles. I think it was 220 to 230 coming down to the south coast. So that makes it just over 500. So a round trip that was completely successful. I don't know if I'd change anything about it. We had our trials and tribulations, which you've seen on the videos. Flat tyres, just the usual things that needed maintenance. Otherwise, the build itself worked perfectly. There was nothing wrong at all with the functionality of the solar power, the electric motor. So yeah, this project was an absolute success, and I shall continue improving and modifying to get things perfect. So I'm going to go and relax now, drink some raw milk and see the goats and kind of settle down for the day. So there we go, the journey from the south coast back to Northampton.